So today we're going to do, after I turn this down just a little, there we go, maybe a little more. Today we're going to do the 9 inner senses. Next week we'll be doing dreaming. And I wanted to give you an update. I had planned on doing this forever because I love it. It's my passion. But I found that I was getting exhausted between doing this and doing the weekends at NBOC every other one. And I'd taken care of my 91-year-old mother and trying to keep up with Reba. That might have been the most challenging. But it just left me exhausted. So when I finish this next week, and next week I'll do dreaming, I'm going to take a break at least until January, and then in January I'll see how I'm feeling and try and get my energy back because I was awfully tired. So we'll play it by ear. If there's interest in January and I feel up to it, maybe we'll start again, or maybe I want to take a couple more months off. I'll have to wait and see. But doing 2 hour-and-a-half presentations and a weekend presentation every 2 weeks, I was really excited, but I overstepped myself because each one takes about a day. So, how we create our reality. Today is a really important day because we're going to be doing the 9 inner senses. And the world is full of magic things patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper by William Butler Yeats. So that's what this is about today. It's about tapping into and learning about and opening up and expanding our 9 inner senses. Now, the inner core of our self is telepathic and clairvoyant, and these abilities greatly affect our relationships, not just with our family, but with our civilization. But we're not using them very effectively, and the reason is quite simple. Nobody has said, that's what we're capable of, and flip the switch on. It's a decision in your mind that you're going to start to become aware of these things. And I'll get into the details as we go through the inner senses about how that happens. These are our birthright. Every person has them. And the more that we get attuned or raise our energy, so think of the jar as our reality. And think of it as filled with these really big marbles. And you fill it right up to the top. And that's our perception of physical reality. And then you decide, well, I think I'm going to put some smaller marbles in. And it's astounding the number of small marbles you can get in there. And that's us raising our vibration, becoming aware of a bigger reality in the same space. But now we've raised our vibration. When you raise your vibration gets smaller, and you're actually aware of more, a lot more. And then after you've filled the jar with the small marbles, you decide to fill it with sand. And it's astounding the amount of sand that you can get into that jar with those marbles. Why? Because you've raised your vibration again in a big way. And so, wow, it's a whole new big world there. And then the last is you fill the jar with water. And it's amazing the amount of water that you can get into the jar. So each step of the way, as we're raising our vibration, our world is expanding dramatically in quantum ways. So my point is that these inner senses are like an expansion, like a raising of our vibration, opening up a world to us that seems the same if you were unaware, but once you click the switch and your awareness goes on, it's dramatic. It's dramatic the way the world expands and the way you relate to other people. So the second inner sense is what we're going to get to right after we come back from our 5-minute break. So we'll start at about 10 of, and we'll take a short break here and then come back.
I carry them in the car.
Wow, we're doing great.
Yeah.
So, on to the second inner sense. Now, every inner sense uses inner vibrational touch, and some of them use psychological time as well. Wow, you put your thing up here when I started my talk, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it down here too.
Oh, great.
Looks like you guys are switching recorders.
Yeah, I'd really be grateful. Yes, I did, thanks. So, psychological time. Psychological time is about turning your focus inward. It allows you to engage the other inner senses and allows you to break free from physical time. When we meditate and focus inward, subjectively, we engage this inner sense. So, here's the exercise. Sit or lie quietly and close your eyes. Pretend that there's a world within as vivid and real as the physical one. Turn off your physical senses. If you want, imagine they have dials and flip them to off one by one. Then imagine that the inner senses have another set of dials. Imaginatively, see yourself turning on inner vibrational touch, and then this one, psychological time. Now this is one method of beginning. Psychological time is a natural pathway that's meant to give us easy access from the inner world to the outer and back again, though we don't use it that way very often. Psychological time originally enabled man to live in the inner and outer worlds with relative ease, with great benefit. So, for instance, in primitive tribes, they would have a shaman, and the shaman would use psychological time to go into and connect with the animals that they needed to sustain the tribe. And then he would take them on a journey, and they would meet a migrating herd of buffalo or elk or some other animal that was one of the mainstays of the sustenance of the tribe. And they would arrive there at the same time as the animals did, because he was able to use this inner sense to make that connection. Now, we know that everything in our life is a synchronicity. Everything is magic, everything is a miracle, and everything is a synchronicity. And when you are able to use psychological time, you're getting into the flow and connecting, making sure that you connect with these synchronistic opportunities. And one of the things that happens as you do this, the more you do it, you'll begin to feel apart from time as we know it during the exercise. You'll have various kinds of subjective experiences, like extrasensory episodes to simple periods of inspiration and direction. And when you use, for instance, when you do an experience like out-of-body travel or an out-of-body experience, you do that inside time. So, for instance, when I've done my out-of-body experiences or even connected with my guides, they take me to places that are not time-bound at all. You know, the United States, right after, in the early 1800s, or they take me to the planet of the Palladians, where I have a life, or they take me to Roman life as a soldier, and they're not time-bound. And the same thing applies to connecting with things, for instance, inside your body. You'll find you're able to connect in a deeper way. So as you develop it and use it, you'll be able to rest within its framework while you're consciously awake. and it will actually add time, add duration to your normal time. Psi time adds duration to your normal time because, I don't know if I can put it in words, but
How do you spell that?
PSY-TIME, psi time, or psychological time, you can put it.
Okay.
As you make these interconnections, your light flows so much smoother. And we've all had days like this when you feel like you're in the flow and everything works out, and what you've done is you've put yourself in psi time. The third inner sense is perception of past, present, and future. So let's say there's an imaginary man standing on a street and he's experiencing a feeling of unity with each living thing in his range. And he's doing that using the first inner sense, intervibrational touch. But using this third sense, this experience would be expanded further. If he so choose, he could also feel the past and future essence of each living thing within this range. So he would feel the connection, and he would feel the things that he was making a connection with out in a bigger sense than the instant of time that we're in. He would feel their past and their future as well. Everything is simultaneous, past, present, and future, and they have no basic reality. They're only in our reality because they're an agreement. They're an agreement. The sense flows through us and through apparent time barriers. So this inner sense, perception of past, present, and future in simultaneous time is an innate inner sense that we have. All these are innate inner senses. And any precognitive experience you have entails the use of this. And you understand this and see examples of this in your life. Say something you just found out about your past supports where you are now in your life. Well, you just created it now. The thing from the past that supports you now in your life, you created now, not in the past. That's an illusion, because reality is created completely new every instant, clean slate, tabula rasa, from the 0 point every instant, millions of times a second. So every instant we can change our mind, we can change our focus, we can change our thought, we can change our direction. Now,
Is there any, so, just focus on this question. Is there anything that we take from one instant to the next instant?
only through focus.
So that which
There's not one thing stored in physical reality.
memories, beliefs.
So all those are energy gestalts in non-physical. Memories, beliefs, because the thoughts are alive, they go out and associate with other thoughts, forming an energy gestalt, and we have this remarkable system I've talked about many times that will always take us back to the last feeling place of every subject. So if we have an energy pattern that we've created, say a feeling, a deep feeling, what we're doing is when we go back to that subject, we're plugging into the old feeling and not necessarily the new feeling. But when you wake up and become aware that you're creating your reality, you realize that I get to make a different choice. And you can actually plan to make the different choice the next time you wobble on a subject and find yourself feeling bad. So that you're not bounded by your old past experience, which creates the stronger your emotion, the bigger the vibrational pathway, the consciousness units from all that is have to come into your life and manifest as whatever it is that you're focusing on. Now, just to give you a couple pointers about when you're in there working with this inner sense, you'll notice that the past always feels slow and heavy, because it's the crap we carry around from our past. Even though we got a completely new slate, no, we're not doing that. We've had, quote unquote, some kind of bad experience. And when we tap into that and recreate it in our new now, and that's the only way it gets into our now, we recreate it now, it's a burden that we're carrying. Now, if it feels good, we're not carrying anything. If it feels good, we're simply aligning with our inner spirit. Now, the future is going too fast. It's going too fast for us to perceive. But you can see as you raise your vibration gets smaller and smaller, you're speeding your vibration up. All of a sudden, now you're becoming much more aware of future events. And people love coming to this reality because they call it the Busch Gardens of the universe. It's like a roller coaster. We don't know what's over the hill. But when we get to fourth density, that's not really the case. Last week when we talked about probable realities and probable selves, you're able to see the future because you understand where that vibration is taking you. And your vibration is allowing you to see a much broader scope. So we're so enmeshed in this totally immersive reality that it's hard to get our bearings. So first, everything in this life is an illusion. It's just a picture of the eternal energy in framework 1. In other words, everything is just a prop in the play we create each day in order to explore our emotions and ultimately our beliefs. So if you can take your eyes off the objects in front of you and start focusing on your feelings, being the observer, then you can start to sense past, present, and future now. The fourth inner sense is called the conceptual sense. And this one's frequently used in conjunction with psi time and with inner vibrational touch. And it involves experiencing a concept completely by personally merging with the concept. Concepts are actions. By engaging this inner sense, we literally become the action. And everybody has different gifts. And frequently, men will have this gift that they can realign themselves spatially to understand a new perspective about whatever it is that they're dealing with in physical reality. Women also have gifts like this as well. They'll have a sense of how to work with food or cooking or plants. And these things are not set with just men and women. Some women train themselves to have these spatial, to activate and utilize their spatial sense, and some men are great cooks. So, and it's all by activating this sense inside yourself that enables you to connect deeply with whatever it is that you're working with. And people that frequently have to do this are like gardeners, engineers, motorcycle maintenance people, and the one I love the most is mathematicians. The highest paid people in the world are mathematicians, and the reason is they have to live their life completely out of their mind. And what they do is they create worlds in their mind that enable them to go in and work with concepts. And these don't happen overnight. They literally create worlds. In fact, the greatest mathematicians alive today have extended mathematics by creating the world. The problem is that after they published the paper, sometimes it took them 5, 6, 7 years to develop these advances in mathematics that are breathtaking, they're staggering. They then have to take a long time to try and train other mathematicians to understand the world that they've constructed in order to solve the problem that they were grappling with. As Albert Einstein so brilliantly said, you can't solve the problem from inside the problem. And they don't try. They create a different world than the world that we're in, that we found the problem insoluble. They create their own world, and then they have a solution, and it's quite beautiful. There was a great mathematician in the 20th century named Ramanujan, and Sarvasana, and it was quite a struggle for him to publish his work because he didn't really do proofs the way trained mathematicians did it. He got a handbook of mathematical formulas as a small boy and taught himself mathematics. And there were no formulas, there were no proofs in there, simply formulas. And what I loved the most and what totally freaked out mathematicians around the world was that the insights that he would publish, he would get from a goddess, an Indian goddess. They were connected. I love the fact that, it seems like in our culture, young girls and young women frequently have trouble with mathematics, and yet the goddess of mathematics is a woman, a goddess. And so you would think that the ladies had a leg up, wouldn't you? But anyway, when they brought him to England, it was quite a struggle for him to learn to do it the old way. If he had done it just his way and they had just let him go, it turns out that over 90% of his proofs they could replicate on their own. But they insisted that he did it, which took all his time, so then he quit producing mathematical insights and brilliancies that really moved the whole field of mathematics forward, and instead he spent his time on proofs. Afterwards, and he died very young, unfortunately, and afterwards they realized what a huge mistake they had made.
Could you tell us the name of that number, the number again?
Oh, sure. That was number 4, the conceptual sense. So, and this is just continuing on that. So you're actually using psychological time in order to do that, to accomplish that. And any true concept has its origins outside of the camouflage system that we're in and continues beyond it. So that this is a really powerful tool. Cognition of knowledgeable essence. Number 5, cognition of knowledgeable essence. This sense involves an innate becoming or transformation of self into something else. Use of this 5th sense would enable us to enter into our friend. And in its fullest sense, it's not available to us in the physical system. But we could enter into our friend, and healers do this. We can enter into our friend within the context of our physical system. The reason it's not completely available to us is that in the physical system, we have one life and one experience, and Edgar Cayce would tune into that every time he did a reading. It's called the Akashic record. And it was relatively easy to do for one life, but we've had countless lives. We've all been here since before the beginning. And in that time, we've had literally millions of existences or experiences. This is just one teeny tiny part. And in its deepest sense, when you connect with somebody fully in non-physical, you connect with all that they are. And even just the connection in all that they are within this reality is huge. Now, let's just take a quick second to talk about healing. Because healers are masters of this. And what a healer does is they connect with the part of you that's the problem. And then they go in and they change that. What a healer doesn't do is cure you. The healer does not cure you. The healer has now taken something that was a training ground for you, whatever this issue is that you have, that you're dealing with, is an opportunity for your expansion. And the healer goes in and takes that away without you doing the work of seeing, of identifying the part of you that you need to embrace to make yourself whole. The part of you that you're rejecting and is acting up in your life to get your attention. And it's always a result of some limiting belief. And because that part of you exhibited that limiting belief, before you get the results, you think it's a good thing. After you get the results, you reject that part of yourself. You go, whoa, that was a bad idea. But you're actually rejecting part of yourself. And you need to take that part of yourself and embrace it to make yourself whole. So when you, and this again is a sense that's innate in all of us. And so you can go inside yourself. And if you lived with Reba, and she would ask you questions like, well, what does that mean? Have you asked your guides? You'll develop that sense in fairly short order. I'm going, I don't want to think about that, doggone it, and for one thing, I'm really happy being upset, so quit interfering with my upsetness, and just let me be sort of wallow here, at least for another minute. But once you start making that connection, it's astounding the answers that you get. This thing, nothing is hidden. There's nothing hidden. So as we move forward in this world and everything becomes transparent, there are less secrets. That's the world that we can feel safe in, because nothing's hidden. And you can treat yourself to some really wonderful, profound experiences, like with a pet, like Dr. Light, or a baby, holding a baby in your arms, newborn, or doesn't even have to be newborn. And you can just let go and enjoy, because the joy of being with your dog or your cat or your baby, you let go. And actually, you're making a connection to the inner essence of whatever it is that you're using as a permission slip to feel the joy and connect with your inner spirit. Number 6, innate knowledge of basic reality. And this is one I love. Because it's really a decision. And what the decision is, and it's pretty simple. The decision is that you're going to take ownership for everything in your reality. Whatever the person's saying to you, whatever's going on in the outside world, you're going to take ownership of all of it. So it's an extremely rudimentary sense, which makes it extremely powerful. And it's concerned with us as an entity. Of course, we're a soul. We know we're a soul, but how often are we connecting with ourselves as a soul, as all that is? An innate working knowledge of the basic vitality of the universe. Since this stuff is just not happening, we're creating it. I'm creating the ceiling tiles and all the beautiful people here. I'm creating it all, every bit of it. There's nothing in my world that I'm not creating. And as soon as you start to be aware of that and take ownership of it, your world changes. Because a dream reality is actually more real than our reality. Because in our reality, there's a time lag. But in a dream reality, the manifestation is instantaneous. So there's a connection instantaneously inside of you with what you're creating. But in this physical world, we think that things are separate from us, and we don't realize that the vitality they have is the vitality that we give them by our focus. So once we start to grasp this and grasp that we're the creators, and look, 99.999% of your life is unspeakably beautiful and fantastic. There's that 1,000th of 1%, which is truly minuscule, which is a problem, but which we have really trained ourselves to focus on. Now, if you focused on any one of the positive things, that would change if the proportions were exactly reversed. If you had 99.999% of your life was terrible, and you focused on the one good thing, you would change everything else if you could hold your focus there. It would all get in alignment with the good. But because we're such masters at focusing on the little problem, so once you become aware of this, you can start to change that and change the way you live your life, realizing that you're the creator. Now, once you start to do this and you're looking, so when I would go for my morning walk, I would always do it as the sun came up, because I really enjoyed creating the sun as it came up, he said very humbly. The world is breathtaking as it comes alive and the sun comes up, and I would spend all my time going, yes, 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 I'm creating this, and I'm creating the birds singing, and I'm creating these beautiful flowers and the wonderful leaves and this wonderful neighborhood, and on, just walking and saying, yes, 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 I'm creating, and it feels really good. Now, so you can do this while you're being physical, but you can also do this, be still and know. Be still and know. And there's nothing more important than this during this physical transition to fourth density. Knowing yourself and knowing what you believe. So just take time each day, go into side time. Spend 5 minutes each day just turning down the dials on your physical senses, turning up the dials on these inner senses. And this presentation is posted online, and the written presentation on Facebook, VibeLife.org, and you're welcome to download it. And as soon as Kath sends me the file, I'll have the audio up on VibeLife.org, or the website, and you can download that along with my talks here at NBOC, as well as many other talks are on there. Okay, let's see. We're down to the last 10 minutes, and we're down to the last 3. So, number 7.
I got a quick question.
Sure, Jen.
Sorry. So, let's just say you're having like an excellent day, you got good energy going on and everything, and somebody's like blatantly, like rude or offensive to you, like they'll say something that's
Yeah.
just not nice, then how is that like my fault?
Well,
How is that like, if you're projecting all this good energy and everything, all
Sure.
of a sudden somebody just comes up and says something
yeah, this was
insensitive
in line with Paul's question, and it's a great question. And my intention was, and maybe if I get my energy back, I'll continue these classes in the new year. I'll have to wait and see. But it comes down to your beliefs. It always comes down to your beliefs. So, for instance, if you have a belief that politicians are crooked, or you have a belief that your neighbor is a bad person, or you believe that the stores are rigged against you, or you believe, so that belief creates, because you have emotion behind it, it creates a vibrational pathway. So when you encounter it in your life, physically, and you will encounter it because it's inside of you and the energy is flowing through you, it's eventually going to manifest in your daily life. This is what Abraham calls momentum. And it's not momentum in the sense that it's something that's already in process, which is what momentum sounds like, but it's momentum in the sense that you have a belief construct inside of you that allows this energy to flow, and as your energy rises, eventually it pops up in your life. So at some point in the past, you have made a vibrational connection with this situation. And now, because you're flowing more energy, maybe you're happy, you're flowing a lot more energy, but now it pops up into your reality because you, in the past, developed this belief that told you you can't trust, or whatever the particular circumstance was. And this becomes, maybe not in the moment, although the moment's always the best time, what belief would I have to feel this way? And then you'll see it. But you can also write it down on a piece of paper or put it in a little recorder, and then later on that day, get back to that belief and correct it. You know, that's not really the way it is. And does that help, Jen?
Yeah, like, just,
Any more hints on correction?
yeah, yeah, I mean, you could, you know,
So,
like,
so at
I
its,
mean, you could just say, well, they're wrong, and, you know, and,
no, that's not really helpful because you haven't changed the belief.
because that's ego-based.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're never wrong. They are just reflecting us back to us. They are never, ever wrong, ever.
Okay, well, what about?
What's wrong is I have a belief that's creating that in my reality that makes me very uncomfortable, and it's extraordinarily upsetting that it's not their fault. I mean, I'm really, really upset.
Even if they call you a name?
You know, just once, can it be their fault? Just once. But it's never them. And that's why relationships are so wonderful.
Is it maybe
Because
on
when you have a relationship and you feel safe, all this stuff comes out. Unfortunately, it comes out on your partner because you feel safe. And unless you're in a relationship like Reba and I, where we can't even get away with 1 minute blaming the other person, because we know it's us, not them, which is very upsetting.
So you're saying on some level, maybe on a subconscious level, that person recognized your pain body in that, and then, or why do they have to why do those things have to even be brought up? Because it's rude.
So,
You know?
yeah. So,
I mean,
if we
doesn't
could
that
just
person need
do
to look
away
at
with all rude
their
people,
side, you know,
but the
their
problem
side
with
of
that
it?
is, of course, then we wouldn't ever have to deal with
Grow.
ourselves, yeah.
Right.
Did you
So-
hear what she said?
Yeah.
Their side, did you hear what she said?
Yeah.
Say again, their side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not just you, because then that in itself, makes you too hard on yourself because you're carrying on their behavior, because their behavior is unacceptable to be that way, right? Just like maybe it's unacceptable for me to take them on too. You know, I can choose to just
Well,
cancel it.
that's a brilliant insight on your part, because to
Because
take them
unlike
on
some
means
people-
you believe in cause and effect. I mean, it means if you think if you do something, they will change. And you
Right.
can't do anything in physical reality that'll change them. The
Right.
only thing you can do is change the way you think about them up here. If you start recognizing, and this gets back to a couple of core beliefs. One, that people are good, that people are all that is. That all that is pure positive
You
energy.
mean like it is what it is? When you say that?
Well,
Or all that it is like,
Well,
is that is what it is?
well, that's true, it is what it is, but it is what it is because you are what you are. It's not
Right.
is what it is separate from you. It is what it is because that's what I'm creating in my life.
Right.
It's just reflecting me back to me.
So maybe on some level, whatever, maybe on some level, it's kind of like the universe wanting you to look at something within yourself, and so it.
Not on some level, absolutely, you
And
just
then
totally
the
nailed
person-
it.
That person that comes into your life, that even if you're at a grocery store or something, and they say something rude or
Yeah.
inappropriate.
Now let's,
But then when I have
let's take a step back here.
but then that kind of goes
When
back to
you-
karma because.
When you
yeah.
made a decision about them in the past, you know, those kind of people or that particular person, it was not unconscious. It's not conscious now because you're not focused on it. But originally, there was nothing unconscious about it. It was literally a decision. Oh, that person's rude and I don't like them. Or whatever the case may be. So now, because you've had a judgment, there's no such thing as a judgment about another person. Every judgment we have is really a judgment of us. And that's because there was a part of us that did that same or very similar behavior in the past, and we have rejected that part of ourselves.
So it's karma.
We've rejected that part of ourselves, and so now we need to find a way to reconnect with that part, embrace it, love it, bring it into ourselves, realize that at the time we were, quote unquote, making a good decision, or we thought it was. And now we have to take it into the wholeness of who we are so that we can be whole and healed. Janine?
Yes, it is. When you are hooked, then it's yours.
Yes.
But if you are there as an observer, that person was good, but there is, you know, it's like you're the observer, you're just observing it. There is no energy in it. Then it's really their stuff, it's not yours.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's a brilliant observation. The one thing I would add to that is this. Being the observer puts you in a point of power because it allows for detachment. And then you get to look at how it is yours. Because it wouldn't show up in your life if you did not create a vibrational pathway, a feeling, emotional pathway for it to show up in your life in the first place. So that's why being the observer is extraordinarily powerful and important, because there's only one point of power, and it's the present. So it allows you to be grounded in your present, and then you can start to take a look at what just happened. You may not have time in the moment, but you can make a note of it, and then look at it later and see how you can take ownership of it.
So when she said, what about it's their side? And that's sort of what Janine was saying. We know, of course, there is no their side. That's what I was trying to get you.
Thank you.
There is no their side. And I think that's what you were saying. It's always us. So I think that's what they're trying to ask you.
Yeah,
Actually,
They're playing the part for you or us.
And you wrote the script for that.
So there is no their side, unfortunately.
they're saying the words to you that you gave them to say.
Yeah.
So I always
even
listen,
if you're just going, like on a,
going along really happy
having
and,
a good day, and
I
then
know.
somebody's gotta,
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
It would show up.
planned it
Yeah,
out.
I agree.
Here's what's
It
gonna
would
happen.
show
I'm
up in
walking
your
down the street.
in your
but
words.
then I,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
then,
that's
but
right.
then that kind of sounds self-defeating, but you answered my question when you said to just, to distance yourself from it, and then there's power in that, because then that way you won't get in that emotional, like,
exactly.
well, that was a, da-da-da-da, and get into a angry rant in your
But then
head.
ask what the lesson is in it.
Yeah.
For you, not them,
Right.
for you.
Yeah, thank
Right.
you, Mary Lou, that's.
Yeah.
So I am, we've covered all the important ones, but I'm just gonna read you the last
We should do it
three.
next time.
Oh, what's the 7? Were you gonna do 7?
Yeah, I'll read 7, 8, 9. Yes,
Now,
Janine?
the other way around too, if you see beauty and
thank you.
wonder, and that's you too.
Yes?
Thank you.
Good.
And look at how much beauty and wonder and wonderful things you're creating. So this is, the rude words were one little thing in a masterpiece that we call your life. That's so beautiful and breathtaking. I mean, you make the sun come up every day. Look at how beautiful today was. You did that. Look at how nice your car is, and your refrigerator is full of food, and you have a beautiful place to live, and the list goes on and on. So if you want, and sometimes it helps to put things in perspective. I mean, that's the first thing that Reba and I do in the morning is do our appreciations or gratitudes.
Well, I have to commend you guys for throwing away all those journals.
It was hard.
That had to be
Yeah.
hard. How long did you guys think about doing that? Did that take like a month or something, or
No,
how long?
no, we just decided, I moved all the furniture in the house.
Oh, you
And I threw all my
redecorated?
No,
Oh.
everything was changed.
I've been doing this on an ongoing basis. So I had, every one of the presentations I've done, I've written.
Mhm.
So I had a stack almost 4 feet high of all my presentations. So over the years with Reba, I started throwing them out. I mean, who's going to read them? My mom asked me for them, and she never even read them. So I started throwing them out, and then I started throwing out more. So when Reba came up with this breathtakingly brilliant idea, let's throw out our journals. I said,
Wow.
yeah.
How many journals was it?
I
Like
think
over
the earliest
100?
one I had was in the I would have one every year for, the year, and I think it was in the 1990 something. And sometimes I would read, I would look through it, we just spent some time one night, and I would say, thank you, 1997, that was a good year, thank you, and then we just threw them in this, and we'd take you forever, but I just sort of, and I said, I'm letting go of this is the old earth, I'm going to the new earth.
Yeah.
I've had those forever. I've moved them from Seattle, and to throw away my journals was like, I never thought I would, but I just said one day, I'm throwing them away, and there was just no question. I couldn't believe it. It was pretty amazing.
It was actually
Yeah.
breathtaking to me.
That had to like put
And
like
it
a
inspired me.
doctors.
We-
You know what I
Mine
mean?
went back to
I wanted burn it. I
72.
think we're just
Oh,
gonna
wow.
burn
Yeah.
so many.
And I actually had one from 1969 with my original dreams.
Wow.
And I not
Wow.
only wrote the dreams down, analyzed them, but then I would go back a week later and annotate them, and then go back a month later and annotate them again. I was showing, see, Reba, there's 3 different colors here. And, but it felt great.
Oh, I bet.
It felt
Felt
great.
free,
I
right?
mean, that's the past. We're moving to a radically new world, and I don't need to be hanging on to this definition of who I was.
That reminds me of Wayne Dyer. One of his books said that he one day decided to lock one of his condos in Maui and to have his secretary get rid of everything. He had manuscripts for his books, his clothes. I mean, it was just everything he had lived with, locked it, and just told her to get rid of everything.
Yeah, Warner Earhart
Yeah.
used to do that,
Completing.
where he would
Yeah.
change everything and sort of reinvent himself periodically.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Change everything in his
And
life.
somebody
do
else
something
wanted
Well, I was
to
just
different.
gonna say, just think that one journal that he didn't throw away because it was like missing, it was hidden somewhere. When we find that, that's gonna be so valuable.
I don't know, it took us
Put
2
that on
days.
eBay, man.
Really?
I must have thrown away 30 journals, so it was a lot, it was
You know,
months.
the secretary probably did do that, who knows?
Really?
So-
Discovered in like 2,000 years.
So, we're 5 minutes over, so I'm gonna impose on you for another 5 minutes, just to read the topics. So number 7 is expansion or contraction of the tissue capsule. Expansion or contraction of the tissue capsule. So this is about enlargement or contraction of the self, a widening of its boundaries. And the first time I encountered this was with Jean Houston. I love Jean. She was a great hypnotist. And she would take us in through hypnosis to feeling very small, like the size of an atom, to the size of the universe. And those are connections. And you, in ways that are I can't explain in no time, Carlos Castaneda was able to see the body as an egg composed of filaments of light, and everything the shaman understood, because they could switch their seeing, that everything in your world is actually attached to you by at least one filament of light. So when you expand or contract your tissue capsule, you're expanding or contracting what you're aware of and creating in your life. Number 8 is probably one of my absolute favorites. Disentanglement from camouflage. Who said being the observer? Janine? Yeah. And you embraced that, Jen? Yeah. Being the observer is breathtakingly powerful. And it can be used anywhere in life to keep composure during times of stress and crisis. And you feel drunk with power when you can pull that off. I know that I did, because as a maintenance manager, they were always knocking on my door saying, well, I've got a crisis, I've got a problem. And it never ended, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just had a gift of keeping my composure. And that flows downhill. If you keep your composure, the people around you are inspired to keep theirs. Diffusion by the energy personality. This inner sense is used by the inner self to initiate the physical manifestation of a personality. You can and do actually create consciousnesses. You create, recently I talked about how many worlds we create. And you don't just create a world, you create a consciousness within a world. So when Reba walks through the door of the kitchen, she's not only creating the world that is that kitchen by utilizing those energy gestalts where she's already put all those vibrational patterns that she easily accesses, like breathing in and out. She puts her mind in the middle of all that physical manifestation with a consciousness that tells her that the herbs are talking to her, that the food is talking to her, and every night, every meal comes out a gourmet meal because she's paying attention and she's listening to her inner spirit. And every time she does that, that consciousness grows and blossoms even more. And with that, thank you very much.